I am in the live chat. No. Yes, no, maybe so. I'll try to keep this as short as I can keep it. I've been markets lately because I see some of my stocks, especially in the tech sector, they've been going down. Well, then within the last 2 weeks, my tech stocks have gone down between 3 and 4% on average. So that's like electric car companies, um, battery companies, solar power, anything to do with solar panels or solar power. Those stocks have taken a hit, and then some of my other real, like, retirement, um, Ventus retirement, they're staying up there. So conservative equities are doing, they're maintaining, but they're going down a little bit, but not as much as the tech stocks. So I had like bought some shares in Neo, and they were up to 62, 63. I have 7 shares. It's funny about Neo. I had 100 shares and I paid like a buck something for it when it was before $2 a share, and it went up a lot. And I go, oh, I got to sell some, and I sold like 15 shares, and then it goes along and along, and then another day comes along and it goes up a lot, right? And so I sell 20 shares, and then I hang on to the rest. So I'm whittling down my position to where I just have 7 shares now, but now it's starting to go down. So it's an electric car company. It's a Chinese company, and they're kind of one of the competitors against Tesla. So I had that, and then today I put in what's called a trailing stop loss order, and so I took the stocks that I own that have gone up like more than 100%. I went through the list in my portfolio, and I took each one that was over 100% and that has increased over 100% on my dollar cost average in, that I put a trailing stop loss on those positions. But I didn't just sell. I only put like 20%, 30% of my holdings in those shares in that companies. So the other one I have is I have a lot of marijuana stocks, but mostly ETFs. I got like MSOS and YOLO. I got THCX. And then I have just a new one I bought, POTX. I have some shares of that. So they're ETFs, which is just they're groups of companies, and they could be passively managed or they could be actively managed. And I think most of I have to look into it, but the ones that I think the better ones are the ones that are actively managed. I mean, they don't go up and down as much, but they have a pretty consistent. I think one of them, MSOS, is more like that than YOLO. But THCX, it's funny. I bought THCX. That's the ticker symbol. I bought like 30 shares or 40 shares, and then they gave me a dividend like right after I bought the shares, which was kind of weird. Usually dividends, you own the stocks for a while, and then you get the dividend after you've been in it. You can't go on if you sell off, and then I think if you sell them off while you're in that grace period, when you have to own the shares for a certain period of time, and then the dividend kicks in. So that was kind of weird. I bought it and I got a really big dividend. The other company that I've gotten really good dividends in is probably the best one I've owned has been John B. S. Filippo and Sons, which is they're a nut company, nut distribution, or like walnuts and pistachios and pecans and all different kinds of nuts in there. So I was like, and then I'm wondering, why did Tyson Foods buy? They have a nut company now. Tyson Foods actually owns Planters now, I think. So it's kind of weird, you think here's a really good product I'd really like to buy, I'd like to be a part of their company and all that, and then they're into like something you don't like, which is like animal agriculture, but big factory farming and that. I kind of try to I really avoid companies in that kind of business. So, but I do have shares of J.M. Schmucker. And I bought that because, well, they got the Adams peanut butter, which is it's just peanut butter. They don't put anything in it other than just a little bit of salt, I think. And you buy a jar of peanut butter and that's what you get. They just grind up peanuts and it's oil, and the oil peanuts separate in the jar and you got to stir it up. But it's like, there's all this other peanut butter on the aisles in the stores that have like lard, or like they add other things into it, sugar and shit, whatever they add into it, palm oil to stabilizers, whatever. And it's just, why do they ruin the peanut? Here's this company, Adams. So I figured J.M. Schmucker, they have that in, and they have the jarred fruit, your strawberry, blueberry, or blackberry jams, raspberry jams. They have the J.M. Schmucker has all of that, the preserves in jars, which is like, yeah, I like that product. I'll buy that all the time. I'm in the grocery store. It's like good quality. So I figured they were like $112 or $115 a share when I started buying J.M. Schmucker. So I got 10 shares of Schmucker, and it's going down. And it's like, you figure people are nice. They're going out to eat as much, right? So they're probably buying more stuff at the grocery store. So I figured, it'd be pretty good. Have a good position in in stocks that are like companies that do food canning or food preservation. And then Schmuckers, they have Folgers, and I think they have Meow Mix too, which they have cat food. So I have cats. So anyhow, I'm gonna end this. I just thought I'd just talk a little bit about that because I've been looking at the stock market a lot. I get on my Robinhood account and I try to something goes up a lot. If it goes up 15, 20%, or even over 35 or 40%, I'll usually immediately sell it off. I'll sell off a part of it. So that's been my strategy, and it doesn't work all the time, but I get a better result. I get better results from that. I was trying to do where if a stock starts going up, I'll buy it, and that in the past has not worked for me. So, but for volatile stocks, for stocks in the high dollar range that are more, they move when there's news or there's an event. They just don't all of a sudden move out of the blue when there's no reports or anything, like your stocks that are like under $5, or the ones that are in the $5 to $10 range. Even those are those will just all of a sudden some rich person will sell off a whole bunch of their shares. And it's like the stock went down. You're kind of wondering why the stock went down. They didn't have any, there wasn't any quarter report or anything. There wasn't any news articles or anything like that. So you scratch your head and you wonder, well, in some circumstances, it might be a good thing. It might be an opportunity if the value of the stock all of a sudden goes down sharply and suddenly, then there is a possibility at that right after that occurrence. This is just me, my opinion, right? Don't take my advice. If whatever I say, this is what I'm doing. This person right here does this. Okay, I'm just sharing it with you. I'm not telling you I'm not giving you advice, right? So don't listen to me, or don't listen. I'm wrong, So, but if the stock goes down sharply in a short period of time, and it's a higher dollar value stock, and there's no news or no report or no any kind of, they didn't do they weren't rated a different rating by a Wall Street hedge fund manager didn't diss them, or they were given a bad, maybe they were getting a lawsuit, or maybe the company was laying off a bunch of people, or there was something that went on maybe in the country that the company was in. Maybe their country, something happened in the country that you bought, that they're in that market. So, because I try to trade in, and I trade international stocks. I just don't stay with U.S. or Canadian or even Mexican stocks. But I do have a lot of Canadian, and I do have a lot of Mexican, and I do have a lot of European and Japanese and Asian stocks, but mostly in my, not really much in my Robinhood account as much as in my Ameritrade and my Schwab account. In my PCRA, I'm like very more conservative because it's a retirement, personal choice retirement account, and they give you the option of putting up to 20% of your 401k into your brokerage account, that you can manage it yourself. They do put restrictions on the kind of stocks like you can buy in that fund, in that account. Like I can't buy anything marijuana stocks or any or mining stocks or anything like that, or restrictions on certain companies that you can't buy either. Penny stocks, I think you can't buy, mostly over the counter and the pink sheet. So, but I'm gonna keep this short. So I've been long on this video, and I just thought I'd just share that what's going on with me and how I've been spending my time lately. I've been trying to get, position myself into better into the market. So yeah, it's a lot. There's a lot riding on certain things. I'm pretty in a high risk. I'm into some high risk stocks. Electric car companies, Archimoto, I got some Solo, I got Neo, and then I have some what's that other car? No, those are the only three I have. I used to have Workhorse. It went up a lot, and I had one share, and then it went up again, and I sold it because I wanted to put it into something that went down a lot. Because I don't know anybody out there uses that strategy that I use, where you the ones that go high, you sell pieces of that off, and then you use that, and then the ones that go down a lot and spike down, you buy a little bit of that, and do that kind of on a regular basis, and it kind of evens itself out and moves. If in a bull market, yeah, in a bull market trading, it's easy in a bull market, but in a bear market, man, it's harder to decide. Are you going to sell this one off? This one hasn't gone down as much as this other one's gone down a lot more. Are you going to sell off a little bit of this one and buy that one that went down a lot more? And you're going to speculate. I should say, yeah, speculate. You're guessing, you're wagering, you're gambling and betting that it's going to go back up. The stock that went down more is going to go up more than the stock that you sold that went down a little bit. Because that stock that you're selling off that went down a little bit to buy up a stock that went down a lot, you might regret that. That stock you're selling a little bit off of, it's a higher valued stock. That stock might go up, might go spike upward in the future. It might go up and you're not aware of it. It'll go up and you'll lose out. And the stock that you bought that went down, and you thought it was just going to go down and then go back up, it didn't do that. It kept going down. It kept going down. It kept going down. It kept going down. And I've done that before. I've gotten myself into situations like that. It's really uncomfortable because you're watching your money just evaporate. You're watching all your hard-earned savings just disappear before your eyes. If you're not, if you're betting, especially if you're like somebody that I got to get this one stock and put everything into that one stock. You sell everything and you buy that one stock and you think that thing's going to go up and you're going to make a whole lot of money. It's going to be easy money, and then you'll just sell it like that when it's at the top of the market. But no, that's very dangerous. You're better off having a percentage of stocks in certain in make the sectors that you have and try to have a variety of sectors in that, especially the ones that are in the down. If they're down now and they're out of favor, no one's talking about them, and they're at their bottom, and you look at the chart and the chart says, yeah, they're at their bottom. And the chart says they have spring. If they go up, they have more potential to go up than these other stocks do. And you put money down on that, because you think that it's going to go back up, and you wait and you wait and you wait, and it's flat, right? And it doesn't go anywhere for a long time. That happens too. I mean, So everything you can't. There's no formula that's, you gotta really do your homework. You gotta really be careful too, and never do very very rarely can you get away with doing a market order. That is, you just say, okay, sell it for whatever anyone wants to buy it for, sell it at that price right now. I don't care, just sell it, right? And the other one is, okay, I'll buy it. Give me whatever whomever's willing to sell it at that price, just give it to me at that price. Well, if you buy in a stock that's like a $5 or $3 or $4 stock, right, and it's really low volume, and someone has a limit order to sell it at a certain price set out there, then you're just going to get it at that price. So they won't. If you do a market order, you're stupid if you do market orders. The only time you really should be doing market orders if there's high volume, like on a big stock, and there's thousands and thousands of shares being traded in that stock. And doing a market order is you're not wasting your time. It saves you time. So, but always do limit orders. Always say, okay, this is the price I'm willing to buy it at, and this is the price I'm willing to sell it at, and set those. And because if you're a young person and you're starting out, don't do market orders. So I don't know. That's, well, hello, F4 17H. Spook. Okay, yeah, he's the artist that lives in Utah, right? I mean, he does some really fabulous paintings. I cannot put into words the awesomeness of that guy's, in his poetry too. He can speak so eloquently and goes on about, he sounds like he's had some influence in the Mormons, in that area. He lives in Utah, obviously, but he sounds like a preacher when he talks. So I had to admire some of the things that he's talked about. But he was arguing with Mendham about the imposition, antinatalism, and the idea of imposition. So he was strongly as opposed to that. Anyone saying you're not imposing. Daspook was saying that, okay, you can't impose on somebody. You can't impose on someone without if they don't exist. Then your imposition argument. So I don't understand how he could say, well, it's not an imposition if it's like you're not there to have a choice. So your parents are forcing you to be here. Your parents, when they just willy-nilly arbitrarily had sex one time, and they weren't thinking of you as a baby in the future and how you were going to grow up and all your childhood experiences, your schooling and your work, trying to start a job and going through life and getting educated and having different experiences and getting sick and having your teeth worked on at the dentist and grieving over lost pets and people dying and getting sick and losing a job or losing a loved one or having horrible things happen, going bankrupt. All these things happen in your life. Well, when your parents were having sex, they weren't thinking about somebody that was going to have to be here dealing with all that bullshit through a whole lifetime experiences. They were just wanting to have sex and feel good and have a good time. So that's you're imposing. Yeah, there was an imposition. Because you weren't there waiting on the sidelines, holding your hand up, saying, "Pick me! I want to be born. Hello, I want to come into existence." You weren't some phantom being that was waiting in a waiting room to be born. I mean, that's just Hollywood bullshit. People, they make up these stories about pre-life, and about people that could be alive before they're a human fetus and they grow and become this life. But judging by the current determination of the actual scale of our known universe, it does leave into make it questionable whether or not this is the only life we have, or this is our only experiences that we're ever going to have of being a live biological organism, in that. We only know this one. Okay, we only know there has been one Earth. We only know there has been one sun. 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 We only know there has b We only know evolution has happened this one time, and it's only happened with the deoxyribonucleic and the ribosomic bodies, cellular organisms. There's a limited. There is only one form that every other organism is based on that form, and we only know this one planet, and we know life through geologic time had a beginning, and it's going to have an end. And that's all we know. But on the other hand, we point telescopes out into space. We put our instruments in Earth's orbit. We send probes out, and we examine the universe, and then we come to these conclusions of how utterly and terrifyingly vast and huge and seemingly unending and having no beginning of a field of everything. It seems to have always been, and it seems to be very, 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 very huge. It seems to have almost no edge. It just keeps going and going and going and going outward. If you keep going outwardly, and zoom out, there's no end to it. So that is in itself for cause to reflection, to think, oh, I've only been here one time, right? This is the only life that I'll ever have, is just this one life right here on this earth. So I mean, if this is so improbable of an event, which it is so mathematically, the odds of something exactly like this happening again somewhere else in the universe, that you see, that's weighing against, that's on the scale, balance scale. So on one side of the scale, there's this huge universe that doesn't seem to have an edge, that has no edge, that doesn't end, that we have known, and we have it had a beginning, and it was really high energy state in the beginning, and it cooled off and formed the heavier, all atomic isotopes and all the subatomic particles that there are. Atoms formed, and the clouds of atoms formed on molecules. Molecules formed into clouds, bigger clouds, and formed stars. Those stars formed the heavier elements, and so on and so forth. That we know as, so reincarnation, but not reincarnation remembering. So that's what I always try to emphasize, that we don't remember anything, right? If we were alive at some other time in the past, right now we have no memory of those events that happened in those other lives. So we are just like, when we die, it is permanent amnesia, which doesn't negate the fact that, okay, over eons and eons and eons and eons and eons of time, over the countless trillions upon trillions upon trillions upon trillions of different stars and potential numbers of planets in high orders of magnitude around distant suns and at other times, way into the future, way into the past, that we were never here at another time. That we, meaning this specific arrangement of molecules and cells and organs and tissues in the specific genomic pattern that I emerged out of that and grew out of that in this environment as a biological organism, a eukaryotic thing of me, of this person, this consciousness, that is highly unlikely, that is very improbable, that is no one else will never have the exact same fingerprints. There will never be another brain that's my brain, same similar shape, same weight, same size, all of the neurons are all exactly the same quantity, arranged in the exact same neurological pattern, that my current brain, in my size of my brain and the arrangement of my organs in my body and all the unique physical characteristics, will only happen this one time. And that's a known fact. Anything else is just a speculation, which is just someone guessing. I mean, it's like, oh yeah, you could guess. The guy down the street could guess. The guy who works at the market, or the kid over there. Everybody's right. I mean, we're all right. We're all correct. Everyone's opinion is, when in those areas, it might as well be just as right or just as correct as my opinion. To say everyone knows as much as I do in that realm. So someone that would make claims that I know, no, it's crazy. No one knows. We know other people are just as real as we are. I mean, unless you're a psychopath. And we know animals too, and we know that consciousness is not just happening on my own with my own self. I believe other people are as conscious as me is, and it's good to have a high state ethics, especially when it comes to like your dietary habits, because well, if you eat something that's a part of an animal or an animal produced, then that animal, and being an animal just as we are an animal, I mean, it was just had a smaller brain, okay, had less of it had less of an IQ, but that does not necessitate that particular organism was a deaf, blind, dumb, unfeeling mute, because it didn't respond to your interrogation methods of interrogating. Well, is it saying something? Is it able to communicate ideas to me? Is it producing some kind of form that is communicative of there being an intelligence there, an intelligent feeling being there behind those eyes, behind the ears and the eyes. And so to make, to just cavalierly eat an animal out of not thinking about that, not taking that to its, not sitting down in your meal and you're eating this part of this animal, or drinking fluids from an animal, or eating something that was made from the fluids of an animal, or you're eating eggs from the animal that laid an egg, and you're not thinking about, you're only thinking that was like a puppet maybe, or like a little mechanical machine. So I don't know, it's like, oh, well, I do know that I'm an ethical person, that I would not want to cause harm to anyone else, that I want to try to live as best as I can as a person, and not have a blood foot, not as have a least of amount of blood footprint that I had on this world. So I think in Mendham calls it blood footprint, which is, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So but you want to try to be vegan, and it will reward you by your health. When when you eat only plants, only food made from plants, then if you do that out of respect for animals, then by doing that out of respect for the animals, your health, you will have good health, more likely than not have good health. Okay, I'll just put it that. That's my opinion. So you should try really hard as best you can to live animal free, not eat animals.